and welcome to the Rob Burgess Show. I am, of course, your host, Rob Burgess. On this, our 111th episode, our returning guest is Jonathan Fowler. You first heard Jonathan Fowler on episodes 2, 10, 20, 21, 29, 30, 31, 32, 34, 35, 43, 48, 51, 56, 64, 74, 83, 92, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, and episode 82. Also featuring fellow regular guest Ash Burgess of the podcast. Jonathan graduated with a BA in History from Indiana University in 2006. He is an unabashed left-wing political junkie. He has lived and worked in South Korea for over 10 years, trying to help the citizens of that great nation, hopefully, talk pretty one day. If you listen to the last 4 episodes, you heard us talk about The Wire. On this episode, we'll be discussing up through Season 3, Episode 3. So consider this your blanket spoiler alert. And now on to the show.
Hello.
Hey, Ja.
Hey, what's up, Bob?
Hey, nothing much. Sorry for being so late. Emerald is teething at the moment, so she's been falling asleep more during the day because she's not sleeping much at night anymore, so...
Oh. Okay. Sounds complicated.
It is. When teeth are cutting through your head, it's not a very restful situation.
Yeah, so... Well, yeah, it's been a big day in Korea, obviously, here.
Yeah, I've been following it from afar. It's been historic.
I mean, we'll see what comes of it, but, you know, North Korea, I don't know. We'll see. They make a lot of promises. They break a lot of promises. They lie. Donald Trump lies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Donald Trump needed the win this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he... You know, they got some photo ops and stuff, which is, you know, probably Donald Trump's favorite thing to get.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. You know, it's I mean, he wants to. He's already basically committed to ending the defense drills or whatever that they do, the cooperative military exercises they do a couple times, like twice a year, I'd say, with South Korea.
Yeah, I saw the statement from the Blue House that was like, oh, we don't know what he meant by that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because it'll be interesting to see what Moon Jae-in, the Korean president, says because it's really complicated because, I mean, I think conservative South Koreans would say that liberal South Koreans wanted to end the military drills anyways. But if the Korean president doesn't actually want to end the military drills, I mean, this could be Trump complained about the cost, you know, and he complained about, oh man, we're flying these, we've got to fly these military jets all the way from Guam up to South Korea. He's like, and I know about airplanes. They're very expensive because, you know, I created Trump Air, which I ran into the ground very rapidly.
I thought you were going to say because he made Mike Pence fly to Indiana to walk out of the Colts game for the players kneeling and the cost of that plane.
Well, that's on taxpayers' dime. Don't even worry about that.
Okay, right. Sorry.
I suppose the Guam flights are too. So.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's his budget now, so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I don't know.
And I'm doing something that I've wanted to do from the beginning. We stopped playing those war games that cost us a fortune. You know, we're spending a fortune every number of months. We're doing war games with South Korea. And I said, what's this costing? We're flying planes in from Guam and we're bombing empty mountains for practice. And I said, I want to stop that and I will stop that. And I think it's very provocative, especially, George, since we're getting along. In other words, we're in the process of signing something. Excuse me?
Did you talk about pulling troops out, U.S. troops out?
We didn't discuss that, no, but we're not going to play the war games. You know, I wanted to stop the war games. I thought they were very provocative, but I also think they're very expensive. We're running the country properly. I think they're very, very expensive to do it. We have to fly planes in from Guam, that's 6.5 hours away, big bombers and everything else. I said, who's paying for this? I mean, who pays in order to practice?
What are the kinds of security?
So one of the things that I suggested and I want to do is we're going to stop the war games unless for some reason we're unable to go further.
The line from South Korea and America has always been that the drills are not offensive in nature, that they're defensive in nature, and so they're necessary to protect South Korea. But if Donald Trump thinks, well, we can save a buck here by not doing these things anymore, I don't know. I just think it goes in hand with what else has happened this past week with the G7 summit, where some people are saying it was basically like the G6, plus Trump, who was, not making friends there. But these are allies. These are traditional allies that he's alienating, and and for him to also say, okay, and South Korea has been a traditional ally for about 70 years, and we are ending our mutual defense drills that we've been doing with them for, time immemorial. So, I think that sends a message possibly to, other allies that, oh, well, America's not going to take its defense commitments to other countries that it's allied with very seriously, and it's going to, seek deals, which may not even be very good deals, with its traditional enemies and the enemies of these other countries and stuff. So, I don't know. It's and all the talk about he wants to bring the troops back from Korea, I think, is it's a disaster. It's a very bad idea, I think. I mean, I don't know.
At some point, I have to be honest, and I used to say this during my campaign, as you know, probably better than most. I want to get our soldiers out. I want to bring our soldiers back home. We have right now 32,000 soldiers in South Korea. And I'd like to be able to bring them back home, but that's not part of the equation right now. At some point, I hope it will be, but not right now. We will be stopping the war games, which will save us a tremendous amount of money, unless and until we see that the future negotiation is not going along like it should. But we'll be saving a tremendous amount of money. Plus, I think it's very provocative.
I would have to probably reevaluate my continued staying in Korea if they pulled the American troops out of here at some point, because that's, I don't know, whether or not North Korea does anything militarily. I mean, China is right nearby too. I'm not saying that they would invade or anything necessarily, but I don't know. I'm not sure that Trump, I don't know. Things have been relatively stable for a very long time, and a lot of presidents have been doing the very same thing. And I don't know, the small optimistic part of me, the cautiously optimistic part of me says, well, not talking to the North Korea because whatever, is, it hasn't, it's maintained the status quo, but it, hasn't really moved us forward. And maybe just talking to the guy will move things forward, but I don't know. He still goes to China. Kim Jong-un takes his cues from China, I think. And I think, I don't know. I imagine there's a lot going behind the scenes as far as what China wants and what they're telling North Korea to do. And I don't think that they have in mind a great deal for America. I don't think that's what they're playing towards. So I think they're playing towards reducing the American footprint in East Asia, so that they can, build up those islands or whatever. And, it's, I don't know. They may be playing chess and Trump is losing a game of checkers. It's like, that may be where we are.
Right.
How could we know,
Well, I remember when this was first discussed, I remember we talked about it, and I expressed my dismay that, that this was going to be the moment that Kim Jong-un wanted about legitimacy, and I remember you were kind of dismissive of that idea, but now that we've seen the photos of the intermingling American and North Korean flags and the handshake and the photo ops like you were talking about, have you reevaluated that at all? Do you still think that's not a terrible thing for them, or?
Well, I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, we could, at tremendous cost to the our allies here in Korea and Japan and stuff. I mean, we could wipe the floor with Korea tomorrow if Trump winds up in jail for treason or something, and we, something has to go the other way. But I don't know. I mean, legitimacy. Who does he have legitimacy with? I mean, he already has legitimacy with the North Korean people who don't have a choice about it, and he's not going to have much legitimacy with the international community, I don't think, who consider things like human rights and nuclear irresponsibility and launching missiles over neighboring countries' lands, territory, and kidnapping people and just, using chemical warfare to assassinate members of their own royal family in third-party countries. I mean, it's just like, that's not legitimacy. He doesn't have legitimacy on the international stage because of this necessarily. If anything, Trump is, delegitimizing America's position, I guess. But,
right. Well, beefing with Canada, like you're saying, with the G7 and all that. So
yeah, Canada and France. I caught bits of the George Stephanopoulos interview, which was, interesting. It's bizarre. I mean, the past 24 hours have been bizarre. Trump is like complaining that he's been awake for 25 hours or something, and
I haven't slept in 25 hours, but I thought it was appropriate to do because we've been negotiating for literally round the clock with them and with us and with John and with Mike and a whole team of very talented people.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, hopefully you're still functioning at a high level when you're sleep deprived, but
right.
Not all of us can do it. I've been awake for about, I would guess, 20 hours probably right now, and I'm pretty tired. So, but and then you had the spectacle of like a basketball guy. What's his name?
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman had an interview with I think it was Jake Tapper or somebody, and he was like he had a Donald Trump "Make America Great Again" hat, and he had like a pot coin T-shirt on or something. He sponsored a strip or something, and he started crying. I'm like,
well, you teed up the relevance of Dennis Rodman. We have him joining us on the show. He made his way to Singapore. There he is right now. Good to see you again, my friend. Dennis, can you hear me?
I'm tired. How you doing, guys?
It's good. Do you have what does your hat say?
What's my hat say?
Oh, good. Now I can see it.
Let's
so you
make
have
America great again.
All right.
You got it right there? You got it?
I got it. Thank you. So you made your way to Singapore. How important is this to you? You talked a lot about the prospects for peace when we spoke several years ago. Did you think this moment would ever come?
Well, in my heart and soul, when I first went to North Korea, I was very honored to even be selected to go there. And once I went to North Korea, I was didn't really understand what the old situation was as far as being over there. And when I first met Kim Jong-un, I was more like, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what he represented. I didn't know if he was someone important. But I knew something was going on. But once I got familiar with the culture and the situation over there, I got really used to being there. I felt like I was at home.
Now, you know both men. You've spent time with the North Korean leader. You've spent time with Donald Trump. How do you think the two men size up in terms of how they might get along?
Well, I think the fact that Donald Trump would understand the fact that the people of North Korea have a heart, they have soul, charisma, and they love each other. And I think the fact that Kim Jong-un and his family understands that. I think that President Trump should understand the fact that the reason why the Marshal of North Korea respects Dennis Rodman, the fact that he trusts me. And I gave him something for his birthday. And I thought I couldn't pull this off. And I said to him on the day before his birthday, I said, I'm going to give you a present. And he said, what is that? I said, I'm going to bring a basketball team, professional basketball team to you. He said, can you do that? I said, yes, I can. Even though I knew I couldn't do it, I said, if I fail now, it's going to be a problem. So basically, I got a lot of people together. I got Popcorn here, helped me out, my sponsor. Thanks to those guys. And it happened. And Kim Jong-un came to me and said, Dennis, you know what? This is the first time someone's ever kept their word. to me and my country. And I looked at him, I always got emotional, but I said, wait a minute, hold on. He said, like, someone's never kept their word to you and your country? He said, yes, this is the first time someone's ever suggested that. And I came through, and I think that he really appreciated that, the fact that he's not normally hearing someone that's trustworthy. And I think that country is normally hearing people that's always lying, deceitful, and not trustworthy. And I think that if Trump goes in there with a great heart, with his heart on the table, and let Kim Jong-un see him, really emotional as far as like speaking to him. It ain't got to be about war. It ain't got to be about hatred or what happened in the future or in the past. The past. We'll move on to the future. And I've told people about Kim Jong-un. He's all about the 21st century. He's trying to progress his country. And Donald Trump is going to do a great job is try to reach out and make sure that our hands, Americans, our hands are always open, because as Americans, we have let so many people around the world join us to be happy in one country, that's the United States. And now we have really put ourselves on a line to reach out to North Korea. And they've been so gracious to me, my family, and the United States. So let's make this happen. If Trump could pull this off, more power to him.
Dennis, did Kim reach out to you, or any of his people reach out to you? The president's people, anybody reach out to you for insight into the other side?
Well, you know what? I've talked to those guys the last 5 years.
Which guys?
And I talked to Kim Jong-un and an administration over there 5 years ago. And he asked me 5 years ago, we sat down for lunch. And he sat down and asked me, hey, Dennis, I would like to ask you three things. If you go back to tell the president of the United States these three things, and I would be willing to talk to him. And it's a true story, and I got my people here that was there that heard the conversation. He said things like, if they can move the ships back from South Korea, I would do what I have to do to listen. If you can move certain things or do certain things, I will listen. My ears will be open. And I tried to do that to Obama. And Obama didn't even give me the time of day. I asked him, I said, I have something to say from North Korea. He just brushed me off. But that didn't deter me. I still kept going back. I kept going back. I kept going back. I showed my loyalty and my trustworthy to this country. And I said to everybody, I said, the door will open.
I remember you saying it. I remember you saying it. Let me ask you something. Does Kim understand English, Dennis?
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. When I said those things, when I said those damn things, when I went back home, I got so many death threats. I got so many death threats when I was sitting there protecting everything. And I believed in North Korea. And when I went home, I couldn't even go home. I couldn't even go home. I had to hide out for 30 days. I couldn't even go home. But I kept my head up high, brother. I knew things were going to change. I knew it. I was the only one. I never had no one to hear me. I didn't know one had to see me. But I took those bullets. I took all that. I took everything. Everyone came at me, and I'm still standing. And today is a great day for everybody. Singapore, Tokyo, China, everything. It's a great day.
It is a great day. This is a historic day.
I'm so happy.
You were saying to me years ago that you thought this would happen. And I want to let you be ready for me to ask you another question. I know you're very emotional about this.
Go ahead.
This is what I want to know. I want to know, well, you're an emotional guy. You feel very deeply about things. People who've been around you understand that.
Right.
Why did you feel so strongly that you needed to make something happen for North Korea? There's so many places you could have gone in the world that have, a much easier path to peace than North Korea, given the record of human rights abuses and other practices of this despotic regime. But you chose North Korea. Why?
Well, I feel like I said, I was very naive when I went over there. I didn't understand and expect all the things I was getting when I went over there. They said, do you realize what you was doing, Dennis, when you went over there? I said, no. I thought it was just another one of those things. I was just doing some charity event. I knew nothing about North Korea. I just thought I was going to play basketball and just treat the people and be happy, and that was it. But it turned out to be so much more bigger than what I thought. And I felt the fact that, just listen to the people, seeing the kids, seeing the people there, and just meeting the regime, Kim Jong-un and the whole marshals and everybody. I just felt like I just fell in love with the country from day one, and I feel like that. I guess I owe it to myself, you know, and the people around the world. You know what? I'm not in here. I'm not in this for no money. I never started it for no money. This is not about Dennis Rob being the greatest person in the world that lead these two people together. It has nothing to do with that. I just wanted to see it get done so we all can live good together.
Well, here's the
no
first
hatred,
day.
no more hatred.
Here's the first day. Let's see where it goes. Let me ask you something. You talk about speaking with Kim Jong-un. Does he understand or speak English?
The one thing about him, though, I always said about him, he's more like a big kid, even though he's small. He's more like a big kid, but he loves to have a good time. And I was saying last night or this morning that he was going around taking selfies and stuff like that. And I was saying that this guy wants to be around the world. He wants to come to America. He wants to enjoy his life. He wants his people to enjoy his life. But I think that the fact that he doesn't have the tools, and maybe the politics of this whole meeting is just going to happen. I think this is going to change a lot. And I hope the fact that President Trump can understand, knowing that Kim is trying to reach out and trying to get in the 21st century.
That's the big question. I want to ask you about that in a second, but let me just get an answer to this. Do you think he speaks or understands English?
Well, I think he understands bits and pieces. If you talk about basketball, yes, he understands that.
So you think it's about what he wants to talk about? Do you think he's studied English?
I can say one thing. I think people know that Kim Jong-un is not a dumb man. I think he's understanding from his grandfather and his father. I think that he's trying to protect his people. He's trying to protect his honor and his and everything that has to do with his country. But like I say, that's respect. That's respect. Nothing's going to happen overnight. It's going to take time.
100%.
If Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump understand that, if they understand the fact that if we just sit there and have a smooth, a comfortable relationship, smile, laugh, joke a little bit, okay, great. It ain't got to be war. It's got to be something that everyone can be comfortable about.
Right.
And I know this meeting is going to be a great meeting.
Well, that's the hope, Dennis. We'll see where it goes. It had a good start. They did the handshake. There was good body language. They said the right things. You know, it's all perfunctory at this part. It's the opening ceremony, and we'll see what happens when we start getting reports about the actual policy negotiations. But you talk about the Kim Jong-un side and North Korea side. Did you hear from the White House at all today?
Well, yes, I did. But, and the good thing about it, yes, Donald Trump reached out. He called his secretary, and she called me and said, Dennis, Donald Trump is so proud of you. He thanks you a lot. And that means a lot. You know, because after all these years, the fact that I somewhat had something to do with this North Korean situation, but I don't want to take any credit where credit is due. I think we all need to take credit. And I'm just here. I'm just so thankful to be here. I'm glad the fact that this is happening. The world saw it. I saw it. My kids saw it. So you know what? It's just hope for the best. We don't need a miracle. We don't need a miracle. We just need the doors to be open so we can start fresh and make this a better place in the world, baby. That's it.
Well, look, sometimes it does take a miracle. I mean, you know, you're dealing with some really tough things on the table here. You know, I know that you've had good experiences with the leader of North Korea, and this is a nice moment. I'm not looking to get into it with you again, but you know now things you didn't know then. There's a lot of violence.
Right.
There's a lot of negativity, and it all stems from your friend, the ruler of North Korea. You know, this man isn't all selfies and smiles. He's responsible for the deaths and hardship of a lot of people. How can you be sure he wants something better than what he is right now?
Well, as we know, Chris, the fact that, you know, I'm not a politician. You know, I'm not sitting there trying to fight the fact that, you know, I'm on his side 24/7. I'm not doing everything right to say the right things to make him look like a better man, a better person. I've never been like that. I've always been like down the middle. Here it is, you know. He's a good friend to me. That's what I look at. I don't see the politics of this whole situation. I don't want to see that. I want to see that to go away. I want us to see us get along, to have a handshake, to have a smile, have a glass of iced tea. Just talk to each other friendly. I don't need to worry about the war stuff and all the stuff that's going on. I don't know anything about that. I just want to do one thing, bring sports to North Korea and try to bring that connection with us to North Korea. That's it, sports. Everything else should be Donald Trump's hands and people in the White House hands. I'm out of it. I'm just so happy just to be here, man, and to see everyone in the world get emotional like I did, cry to see it really, really happen. And Donald Trump should take a lot of credit for this because he went out the box and made this happen. So anyway, so I want to say one more thing before I leave. Can I say one more thing?
You can say whatever you want. Go ahead.
Okay, so can I thank some people, though, while I'm here? Can I thank some people?
Yeah, go ahead. But let me ask you something. Don't go on a whole tour about it, but I want to ask you something else. But thank somebody if you want to thank them. Go ahead, Dennis.
All right, so, I just say thank, all the good people that's really stood by me. Darren Prince, Vo, all the guys that went with me to North Korea. I'm thinking Chuck Daly. I'm thinking Phil Jackson. I'm thinking Jeannie Buss. I'm thinking, Pete Giannopoulos. I'm thinking Eddie Vedder, the Pro Jam. Everybody that supported me through all these things. So, I'm thinking my kids, they still with me after all these years. All the things I've done up and down, they still with me. Right. I just want to thank everybody, man. And plus, you know what? I'm thinking these guys at Popcorn that supported me through this whole venture.
I got you. We see the shirt there. You got a good outfit. You got Trump on the top. You got Popcorn on the bottom. Let me ask you one more thing. You think there's any chance that you might have a role in this process? Has anybody reached out to you or given you reason to believe that whether it's the North Koreans or it's the Americans, that they may reach out to you as some type of resource here, something that is part of this mix going forward?
Well, you know what? Like I said, that's not my job. I wish that the fact that people would quit putting me in that title role, the fact that I should be involved with this whole politics stuff. I just want to be involved with the sports aspect. And if they can use me in that direction, maybe I can have some type of common sense to shine some light on what's really going on in North Korea. If Trump want to come ask me about certain things, he'll probably figure it out today, and I hope he does. But if he want to ask me one-on-one, I'm willing to do it. So, like I said, I know a lot of things, but like I said, this is Trump and Kim Jong-un's day. This is the world's day. It's not my day. I just came here because I wanted to see face-to-face in my own eyes. So thank you guys for having me on in the world. Thank you guys. I'm going to do more important things down the road. Please.
Well, Dennis.
Step behind me. Be behind me.
Dennis, it is good to see you. I'm glad you are well. I know that you're on your own journey. Stay healthy. Stay happy. And please let us know what you find out about this process. It's good to see you, Dennis Rodman, in Singapore. Thank you.
All right, thank you, brother.
All right.
All right, brother.
What the hell is going on? Donald Trump's like, I've been awake for 25 hours, and Dennis Rodman's crying, and I'm like, fucking the G6 is pissed at us, and, Kim Jong-un is, like, basking in the glory and stuff. Has the entire world, gone crazy? I mean, what are we doing? Who's in charge here?
Right.
Who, these people who are affecting foreign policy? I mean, I don't know. I just, it's interesting. We'll see. It may still all end in tears here, but.
Well, I mean, I have heard the analysis though that this looks very bad, of course, and Trump isn't bringing up any of the human rights abuses. Obviously, he doesn't care one way or another about that. But at the same time, what is the other option besides, like, kind of flattery of the North Korean regime? I mean, nobody wants to go to war, and that would be disastrous. And there's no such thing as a bloody nose strategy or whatever they were talking about with hitting specific sites, because they've got tons of mountains and secret sites, and they'll never get it all before they fire something off, and that's not going to work. And starving them out hasn't really worked thus far because China's not willing to cut everything off. So where does that leave us? I mean, what else do we do besides somewhat legitimize or flatter them, or in some way do some version of hopefully less embarrassing version of what's going on now? But
I think an argument could be made that ignoring the human rights aspect could actually help the human rights in the long run, because potentially with more with more security on the international stage, they would feel less domestic insecurity, and they wouldn't feel the need perhaps to crack down on people for every little thing so much. And they would also, perhaps be enjoying the good press that they've been getting for, appearing reasonable on the international stage, and they might want to increase that by improving their human rights. So, in the long term, it's possible that providing more security than that to them could, as a byproduct, improve human rights to some degree. But I don't know. Donald Trump mentioned human rights. Well, George Stephanopoulos pressed him on human rights, and he mentioned, I think that's, we talked about it a little bit. I brought it up or something, and actually, I can't remember what he said, but I think he said, like, in the future, something could be changing there.
You mentioned that you have raised extensively the issue of human rights with Chairman Kim. I wonder what you would say to the group of people who have no ability whatsoever to hear or to see this press conference, the 100,000 North Koreans kept in a network of gulags. Have you betrayed them by legitimizing the regime in Pyongyang?
No, I think I've helped them because I think things will change. I think I've helped them. There's nothing I can say. All I can do is do what I can do. We have to stop the nuclearization. We have to do other things, and that's a very important thing. So at a certain point, hopefully you'll be able to ask me a much more positive question or make a statement. But not much I can do right now. At a certain point, I really believe he's going to do things about it. I think they are one of the great winners today, that large group of people that you're talking about. I think ultimately they're going to be one of the great winners as a group. Yes, sir, go ahead.
That's not exactly a guarantee. So,
well, none of this is a guarantee. I mean, you compare, he constantly criticized the Iran deal. But, I mean, think about what that looked like. I mean, we had inspectors, there were checks, there were ways we could actually see. You can argue back and forth, were they following it to the letter or not. But at least there was some mechanism to, like, ensure that this is going on. And their program was nowhere near what North Koreans is. And this is just, I read the whole statement that they signed or whatever. There's no specifics. I don't see any, like, timetable. I don't see any checks in place to make sure any of this is actually going to happen. It's just, like you said, a photo op, and he wants to say he signed something, so they did. There you go. So it's like, what kind of deal is that? And what did we get in return for this vague statement? Nothing. I don't see any benefit other than just not nuclear war. Of course, that's a big benefit, but, it's like, what else did we get? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, like, I don't know if there's video of this or not, but I read on a CNN article some quotes Trump had about how he, is kind of coaxing this guy, like I've seen their beaches in North Korea. The beaches are beautiful. I see them when they're launching their missiles and, firing their anti-aircraft guns off the beaches and stuff. I think, wouldn't it be nice if there was a hotel there, like a classy hotel? And so he's like, I'm trying to sell them on this, that, like, we'll build hotels there. They're going to get, if they do the right thing, they could be rich. Like, wow. This if you can pull that quote, if it's an audio quote, that would be probably amazing to drop.
I only saw that as a AP headline, but I'm sure there's audio somewhere. But
I wish there's some audio of it or something, because it's I don't know. It would be fun to, like, read the actual quote in here because it was a ridiculous quote.
They have great beaches. You see that whenever they're exploding their cannons into the ocean, right? So I said, boy, look at that beach. Wouldn't that make a great condo behind? And I explained, I said, instead of doing that, you could have the best hotels in the world right there. Think of it from a real estate perspective. You have South Korea, you have China, and they own the land in the middle. How bad is that, right? It's great.
It was bizarre. Like, we could build a Trump Tower right there on the beach where they were launching their missiles over Japan. I watched the video and I thought, prime real estate. It's like, that's where this guy's mind goes.
That's your answer to everything, dude.
Yeah. When your only tool is a real estate office, I guess, and every problem looks like I don't know. There's probably a witty way to finish this sentence, but it's escaping me right now.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So, but the past 24 or so hours have just been bizarre. Between him, Dennis Rodman, we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm probably, like, one of the most critical people of Donald Trump that it could possibly exist. But, I'm willing to admit that, probably what we've been doing up until now has not been successful. And I'm not saying that means just try anything. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump has been prepared. Also, I thought it was hilarious that he said something like, I had to, a few days ago, he said, they asked him, like, have you been preparing for the North Korea summit? He's like, no, I don't need to. I don't have to prepare. I'm just going to go in there. In a way, I've been preparing my whole life for it. Like, come on. No, you haven't. Not specifically.
What are you doing to prepare for the summit with North Korea?
I think I'm very well prepared. I don't think I have to prepare very much. It's about attitude. It's about willingness to get things done. But I think I've been preparing for the summit for a long time, as has the other side. I think they've been preparing for a long time also. So this isn't a question of preparation. It's a question of whether or not people want it to happen. And we'll know that very quickly.
Look, this is not like a building inspector in Queens. This is like just a little more complicated.
Yeah. And then, well, the funny thing is, then after saying that he was not preparing for the South Korea summit or the North Korea summit in Singapore or whatever, he left the G7 early. You know, he left the environmental impact or whatever section after arriving late for the women's rights thing or something. Mm-hmm. He left early, and the excuse was, well, I have to prepare for North Korea. It's like, okay, you haven't been doing your homework before. You gloated about it, and now you're like, oh, I have to leave the G7 because I need to do this thing that I already said I don't need to do, and I'm already totally prepared already by my lifestyle.
Yeah, right.
It's just absolutely like, you know, I can imagine like Oliver Stone or somebody making a funny movie about this whole situation sometime in the future. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to imagine an actor doing a legitimate job, like a good enough job of capturing the just utter stupidity and sheer insanity of it all as it plays out and unfolds in real time, you know?
I almost feel like if Trump is still around, you could almost get him to play himself.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, he probably won't take direction very well. No. Yeah, he'll probably insist on, I don't know, it would have to be a thing where you would, like, have him play, like, have people around him, like, doing some, like, mugging and stuff after he says something.
Like breaking the fourth wall, like, just, like, on The Office or whatever, like, just looking at the camera.
Yeah, you're going to have to let him play himself totally straight, like a serious individual. Uh-huh. But then you're just going to have other people's reactions be, like, the kind of the cue to the people, like, oh, yeah, this guy's ridiculous. And it'd be great because you'd let him just be as serious as he wanted to be, which is his version of seriousness is funny. I don't know. It's not, you know, I mean, it's very clear that he wants to project an image of, you know, wealth and class and sophistication that he does not possess. Mm-hmm. And so you'd have to let him pretend that he does and, you know, just, you know, use context clues to cue the audience into what's really going on. So,
yeah, definitely.
I don't know. It's, yeah. Anyways, I don't know. It's, I should probably consume more media about what actually has been going on.
No, I think you're pretty caught up on what's happening. So, I mean, it's all anyone's talking about on social media right now, Twitter and that. So,
yeah, I think the biggest danger short of nuclear war is that this will actually help the Republicans in the midterm election.
Right, exactly, yeah.
I mean, because let's be real, nothing has really been achieved here except, you know, a photo op, which is big in a way, but, like, I don't know. I mean, if anything, he shouldn't even break even. He tore up the Iran deal, and then if he tries to make a deal with North Korea, I mean, at best he's broken even. You can't say he's like a foreign policy genius at this point because he did that.
Well, and then it doesn't give much anyone hope that he'll stick to whatever terms are, you know, hammered out, because he's already, you know, turned away on this one, even though there's no evidence that I understand that they've been violating the agreement in Iran. So, if, you know, we're not going to honor that, what would we honor?
We're not violating it.
What's that?
It's like, yes, but they were financing militias. It's like, that's not part of the nuclear deal, motherfucker. Yeah. They have interest in the region. So does Russia, motherfucker. Are you gonna stand up to Russia now too?
And by the way, why is Russia not here? Why is Russia not in the G7 or the G8?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you call it. It used to be the G8 because Russia was in it, and now Russia's not in it. Now, I love our country. I have been Russia's worst nightmare. If Hillary got in, I think Putin is probably going, man, I wish Hillary won, because you see what I do. But with that being said, Russia should be in this meeting. Why are we having a meeting without Russia being in the meeting? And I would recommend, and it's up to them, but Russia should be in the meeting. It should be a part of it. You know, whether you like it or not, and it may not be politically correct, but we have a world to run. And in the G7, which used to be the G8, they threw Russia out. They should let Russia come back in, because we should have Russia at the negotiating table.
After I heard that, I'm like, all right.
Very unfair what Obama did to them.
Yeah, absolutely. After that, I was like, okay, does anyone seriously questioning the dossier at this point? Like, any part of it? Like, does anyone doubt what we were talking about all those months ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got almost no talking points on that, except for he was a foreign national. He was financed by Hillary Clinton. We don't have the P-tape yet, so it's all false. Everything must be false.
Well, that's the thing with blackmail, right? They won't release it if you do what they want. So, as long as you do what they want.
I mean, you know, Putin's probably so happy now he's about to burn the tape himself.
I mean, what could he realistically hope for that he hasn't already achieved? I mean, beefing with Canada, it's just like, how did we get here?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Did we talk last time about the immigration stuff? I think we did, didn't we?
What about it?
Oh, just about, you know, the senator congressman, I forget who it was, who visited the children's containment center or whatever.
No, I don't think we did. I know who you're talking about, but I'm not sure we talked about it.
The illegal people/animal concentration camps that we're, you know, running in America now.
Yeah, it's very upsetting. So.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the Trump supporters will say, "No, Obama ran them too." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. So what do you want me to do about that then? And do you want me to say, okay, it's okay that Trump is running them now? Oh, no? Okay. Were you complaining about them back when Obama had them?
Mm-hmm.
No? Okay, so you don't actually care. So I'm going to keep complaining about what Trump's doing now because I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
If I wasn't aware particularly of it during the Obama administration,
right.
Well, I'm sorry, you know, it wasn't in the news or whatever. This is in the news now. Oh, the mainstream media. Oh, okay, yeah, whatever. So I should listen to your racist Breitbart. You know, it's just like the fact that we can encapsulate and summarize the Republican attack line on this, and they probably could not. I think it'd be fascinating to have a Trump supporter on and just see if they could, you know, give a good faith summary of left-wing positions on various things, and just see if they could, I mean, if they could suspend their, you know, sarcasticness long enough to actually, like, engage with the ideas and restate the ideas in some way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt that many of them would be capable of it.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Well, I mean, what you're describing there is the tactic of whataboutism, which is just to mention something else whenever something you're doing or your side is doing is brought up. But my favorite part about that whole style of arguing is it totally, like, just gives over the fact that I'm not even going to try to defend what I'm doing. I'm not even going to engage with that. I'm just going to point to something else and be like, but there, what about? And it's like, you know, you're not actually saying that the charge that was originally leveled against you was even wrong. It's just saying that something else is also bad. Like, it's like, what does that have to do with anything? We're not talking about. And it's like, if you're going to say Obama did that, and what have you been saying about Obama this whole time? And why are you comparing yourself to him if you think he's the worst? So.
Yeah, it's, I mean, the thing about it is, I mean, I think when you're dealing with, like, whataboutisms or people using logical fallacies, you just really got to cut to the core of the issue is, okay, if we follow your advice, what will the result be? Mm-hmm. You know, what's the outcome? What's the function of your argument? And the function of your argument is, oh, we don't do anything and we just let Donald Trump keep, you know, breaking up families, losing 1,500 or however many children in the system, you know, placing immigrant children in foster care with people who can't speak Spanish, who, placing some children with child traffickers, apparently. sending people back to places where they get killed, which I heard happened last week. Some teenager got killed back into Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, I mean, sorry, no, I don't agree with that. It's like it has demonstrably horrible results.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you're trying to carry water for, you better be very clear about what it is and why it's defensible, because it doesn't seem to be defensible.
Right. And, what do people say whenever you compare something to the Nazis? You always lose the argument automatically, but it's sometimes
you don't, motherfucker.
No, but Godwin's law or whatever. But, at the same time, it's like, this is straight out of the Nazis. Like, this is like what they did with the concentration camps, telling people, like apparently now they're telling people that they're taking their kids to get cleaned up at, these detention centers, and it only dawns on them like hours later that they're not coming back. That's what they told the Jews in the camps, that they were just going to go take a shower, and then guess what? You know what I mean? So it's like, this is like straight out of the Nazi playbook. We're talking about, we got ICE people saying, I'm just following orders. Who else said that? It's like, I hate to keep making these comparisons, but it make it all too easy. This is exactly what happened. Like,
Yeah. These people think as long as we don't, kill 6 million Jews in ovens in 1940s Europe, then we're not the Nazis. Okay.
Yeah, I think I heard you say once about like never the catchphrase "never again" for the Holocaust. It's like, yes, we will never again let the Jews in the 1940s be killed by Germany.
Yeah, I think that people. It's one of those one of these arguments that people make just as a reflex, right? Just kind of like free speech. Oh, free speech is good. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, have you critically examined that? Why do you think that's so?
Mm-hmm.
Or, never again let the Holocaust happen. But, there's ethnic cleansing going on in certain countries in the world, Myanmar or whatever, Burma. We're not the world's police. What can we do about it? I don't know. There's just these arguments that people make out of reflex, I think, that are not, you can't compare anything to the Nazis because the Nazis was uniquely evil. Yes, they were uniquely evil in some ways, and yet if we can't learn any lessons from that, and if we can't adapt what the circumstances that are universal versus the circumstances that were particular to that time and place, it's just, we just don't, I don't know. I think we might have mentioned last time that, I don't know, what was it? Like, I'm just saying, like, people are like, well, he just wants to, separate, and ICE and all this stuff is just about catching the criminals. But by Republican definitions, every person who crosses the border illegally is a criminal by de facto. So every one of them should be caught. And so, and MS-13 is animals. They're animals. Some members of MS-13 have done horrible things, like many gangs, but the fact is that, ICE has arrested American citizens for speaking Spanish in a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. It's like, so you're calling Latin American people animals who are in a gang, but then your government organization that's responsible for controlling these people or deporting them or jailing them or capturing them or detecting them or whatever doesn't distinguish between ordinary citizens of America who happen to be Hispanic versus gang members. And so this is where you get into the dangerous thing when you're calling people animals.
Yep.
And
dehumanize the enemy. Have we not seen Starship Troopers? Did we learn nothing from that?
Yeah.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
Yeah, I want to know more.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's frustrating. I'd like to hear, the other side. I'd like to hear an intelligent member of the other side respond in some way.
Well, I'd like to hear a Christian respond to this, just because, it's like, come on. I know that you got your Supreme Court justice, but, like, what else? What about everything else? Like, are you seriously ready to, like, throw everything on the fire and, like, just let it all burn just because you got Gorsuch? You know what I mean? Like, it's like...
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Some people might suggest that, well, I don't know, that, people who are, what can we say, looking for that believe that there is a supreme, divine leader or something like this, that they're, it's a fatherhood substitution metaphor or something. And so then when they get a political leader who they identify with and who, pisses off the right people, all I know is they can never ever say again anything about a character like Bill Clinton or somebody,
Oh, but they can. They still talk about Bill Clinton. He's on his book tour with James Patterson for the novel he wrote, and they're harassing him.
Yeah, he had the Me Too dust up or whatever.
Oh yeah, on the Today Show. Yeah.
Switching gears, as you know, there is a reckoning going on in this country surrounding the Me Too movement. A few days ago, in response to critics who've suggested that you should have resigned in the wake of the Lewinsky scandal, you said that you should not have. If you were president now, in 2018, with everything that's going on with the Me Too movement, how would you have approached the accusations differently, or would you have?
Well, I don't think it would be an issue because people would be using the facts instead of the imagined facts. In other words, to even make this case, you have to ignore some of the evident facts, as some of the older women who've written about this, and in amazement saying, can you believe people are saying this guy was defending the Constitution? And of course he shouldn't have resigned. If the facts were the same today, I wouldn't. And I don't want to get into the facts. I'm not going to do anybody's work for them. They can go back and read it. But
I'll also say, where was the media for the last 30 or 40 years? Everybody's known about the casting couch forever.
But this isn't just about the
investigation. No, you're asking, well, don't we have a right to change the rules? Yes, but you don't have a right to change the facts. So a lot of the facts have been conveniently omitted to make the story work. But I think partly because they're frustrated that they got all these serious allegations against the current occupant of the Oval Office, and his voters don't seem to care, so you don't ever talk about that. I think that the answer is no. I think I did the right thing. I defended the Constitution. Unlike our president, the grounds, even if true, were insufficient grounds, as Newt Gingrich admitted to me. It was a political struggle, as it always is. And they wanted to abolish a fundamental principle of democracy, which is that we should all live under the same set of rules.
You think this president's been given a pass with regards to the women who have come forward and accused him of sexual misconduct?
Well, I think that, no. But it hadn't gotten anything like the coverage that you would expect with 19 people. Those poor 19 women have been lost because I think that you have other things to cover, and I think people think that his constituents don't care, and so you just keep going. Let me just say it in another word. I loved what Starbucks did last week over civil rights, closing down. The times I like the Me Too movement. It's way overdue. I think that it doesn't mean I agree with everything. I still have some questions about some of the decisions which have been made. But Time's Up is important too, because they talk about how creating a culture in which there are no more victims. And so I was thinking, I wonder whether Starbucks is a good model for companies to deal with trying to root out harassment, discrimination, unwanted approaches.
Last question here, because one of the things that this Me Too era has done, it's forced a lot of women to speak out, women who feel emboldened now. One of those women, Monica Lewinsky, she wrote in an op-ed that the Me Too movement changed her view of sexual harassment. Quote, "He was my boss. He was the most powerful man on the planet. He was 27 years my senior. With enough life experience to know better, he was at the time at the pinnacle of his career. While I was in my first job, out of college. Looking back on what happened then, through the lens of Me Too now, do you think differently or feel more responsibility?
No, I felt terrible then, and I came to grips with it.
Did you ever apologize to her?
No, yes, and nobody believes that I got out of that for free. I left the White House $16 million in debt. But you typically have ignored gaping facts in describing this, and I bet you don't even know them, so I am not going there. This was litigated 20 years ago. 2/3 of the American people sided with me. They were not insensitive to that. I had a sexual harassment policy when I was governor in the 80s. I had 2 women chiefs of staff when I was governor. Women were overrepresented in the Attorney General's office in the 70s for their percentage in the bar. I've had nothing but women leaders in my office since I left. You are giving one side and omitting facts.
Mr. President, I'm not trying to present a side.
You asked me if I agreed. The answer is no, I don't.
And I asked if you'd ever apologized, and you said you had.
I have.
You've apologized to her.
I apologize to everybody in the world I'm wrong.
But you didn't apologize to her, at least according to folks that we've talked to. There was never an apology made.
I have not talked to her.
Do you feel like you owe her an apology?
No, I do. I do not. I have never talked to her. But I did say publicly on more than one occasion that I was sorry. Okay. That's very different. The apology was public.
And you don't think a private apology is owed?
I think this thing it's 20 years ago. Come on, let's talk about JFK. Let's talk about, LBJ. Stop already.
Okay.
Yeah, that's also interesting.
What? What part?
Just what he just said. I don't think you think President Kennedy should have resigned? Do you believe President Johnson should have resigned? Someone should ask you these questions because of the way you formulate the questions.
Mr. President, I was, again, Senator Gillibrand, she raised the issue. Others have raised the issue during the Me Too movement. I was just...
You're here asking it now.
Yeah, that's what... But when you filter the question back to me, there was a stunning article by a conservative woman that didn't even like me in the New York Daily News, which had more facts about what happened 20 years ago than anyone out there. And she said, we should not cheapen victimhood. And so you just draw your own conclusions. I dealt with it 20 years ago plus, and the American people, 2/3 of them stayed with me. And I've tried to do a good job since then with my life and with my work. That's all I have to say to you.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
Mr. President.
I don't know. It's, I think, like, Bill Clinton, such a complicated person. And, there's this kind of this left-wing revisionism going on where we're going back now and saying, oh, he was a very problematic character. He may have raped some people. It's like, okay, well, maybe. The thing is, like, I don't know. It's complicated. We've talked about Bill Clinton before. My difficulty with that is that it seems like every single one of the women who had accusations against Bill Clinton of one sort or another fell in with hardcore right-wing religious right Republican.
Oh, yeah. No, I follow, like, almost all of them on Twitter, because I followed them all after that thing before one of the debates where Steve Bannon gathered them all together. And they're, to a person lining up behind Trump. And I just want to, I don't want to actually engage with them in any real way. But other than that, I do want to ask them, it's like, okay, fine. You think these things about Bill Clinton. Trump admitted that he does this, and you still, lined up behind this guy. And it's like, do you not see the irony here of you making these accusations and still lining up behind this guy? Okay, have your accusations, that's fine, but what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, well, it's not even just Trump. I think even before Trump, they were with the whole, religious right stuff back in the 90s.
Right.
And a lot of them.
But then at least you could say they had a leg to stand on as far as like, oh, we're looking down our noses at you because we're moral and you're not. But it's like you've lost that plane that you can look down on people on, or at least, it was always a fallacy, but now it's like totally laid bare. You know what I mean?
I don't know. People need to. I wish people could take themselves back into the 1990s mindset. I mean, the Cold War was over. Things were, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Everything wasn't perfect. Some bad decisions were made. But I don't think that the Clinton years were this, I don't know. Maybe I don't understand it as well as some of the people who say that, this kind of this centrist Democratic triangulation stuff was, such a bad thing.
I mean, now it's looking pretty good, but, for the most part. I mean, not everything was perfect, but, compared to what we have now. So.
I think, the argument is that it just allowed the Republicans to go farther right wing. But I'm not sure that it was always entirely clear that that's what they would do if people met them halfway, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. It's rough. I mean, that is when the 94. They had the big Newt Gingrich revolution. Yeah, that brought in the seeds for the Tea Party. I think from that point forward, and you could say that was a straight reaction to that centrism or whatever of Bill Clinton, that they went to the center and they just went more to the right, and they've just continued to go to the right. So
yeah,
and now they control everything. So.
Yeah, at some point in their history, possibly in the 80s, but definitely at least by the 90s, the Republican Party started to lose their mind. And I don't know, but there's not you can't start from that and work backwards. You have to say, well, that wasn't a given that was necessarily going to happen. I mean, I don't know. Anyways, I don't know. I'm sure we've pissed off just about everybody and the radical left already in this podcast.
Sure, absolutely.
Had we better talk about The Wire?
Sure, yeah. Let's go to that. Nice safe topic.
yeah. So, yeah. All right. So season 2. Now I have to admit, I've watched season 2 twice before. But right now, I was only able to get 3 episodes in last night.
No, that's okay. I've gotten through episode 3 of season 3, actually, but I can actually...
Jesus, Bob, slow down.
Okay, I will.
I got 9 more episodes to go in this season just to catch up. But
why don't we just keep our conversation to season 2 then, and then we can catch up, next time.
Yeah, I should be able to go very in depth on the first 3 episodes, and if you refresh my mind about things that happen in later parts of the season, I'm sure I can go reasonably in depth on those too.
Right. Well, I mean, we can still talk about the end of season 2 next time we talk too, and I'll take a little bit of a break on that for a bit to let you catch up.
I think I can talk reasonably intelligently about things that happen throughout the season. You refresh my memory. Rewatching the first 3 episodes, I forgot about certain scenes that had happened, and I was like, oh yeah, that did happen here. I thought that happened later or something, but it happened here. So, yeah, don't worry about spoilers or anything.
Okay. So yeah, season 2. You mentioned that you and other people were kind of thrown for a loop when this kind of first happened because of the radical shift in focus. Do you still feel that way now upon rewatching? Are you still thrown for a loop, or do you know it's coming and it's okay? Or
I'm pretty well okay with it. I think the first time I watched it, I felt like they just abandoned. I felt like in the first season, the criminal, the Barksdale gang is just as compelling, if not more compelling, than the police department side of things. And so, when they totally abandon them and they're on a new case, and they've got these largely white, people working on the docks, what do you call them? The stevedores?
Stevedores, yeah.
Longshoremen or something, yeah. Like when you shift to them, you've got a whole new gang of shady characters and criminals of one sort or another, and I felt like the shift away from the Barksdale people was too abrupt the first time. But the second time I watched it a couple of years ago, I did notice that actually the Barksdale stuff was still kind of going on in the background. They hadn't totally abandoned them, Avon and D'Angelo are adjusting to jail. Weebay's in jail. And D'Angelo's mother is playing a bigger role, kind of right next to Stringer Bell in the organization. Yeah. So I noticed that stuff was all still going on, but I think the first time I just didn't really appreciate that it got put so much on the back burner, I guess.
But I mean, it's like, it made logical sense to me, that had to happen in certain ways, because it's like, you can't have that much like tension and that big of a blow up at the end of the first season without something changing, the calculations people are making, with Stringer Bell thinking about splitting up the territory with Proposition Joe. He's got this weak product from Atlanta that he's having to step on several times, and it's not really like as pure as he's used to, and all the fiends know it, and so they're going across the tracks, and he's kind of having to deal with Avon from jail, and Avon wanting to hang on to everything because obviously he wants everything when he gets out to be the way it was, and that's fine. I mean, that makes logical sense to me. It did end up making for, and I think I mentioned this to you, I did end up making for kind of a letdown after that season 1, because the season 1 was so solid and so intense. This was a little bit more, I feel like it took its time with a lot of things. It was a little more let you stew in it. It wasn't quite as rip bang as the first season was to me, and it wasn't bad, but it was I felt like it was a little bit of a letdown to me. It wasn't bad, just a little bit of a letdown.
I don't know. I feel like the first season, the thing is, you can only watch The Wire the first time once.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the first season was a slow burn too. I mean, because you had so much trouble getting into it at first, and I think I think probably you didn't really click with it. I think the point at which you started watching it, religiously, was after Kima got shot, which was about, I think that was episode 7 or
Yeah. Or no, episode 10. Episode 10.
Yeah, at that point, it kind of goes from a kind of a slow burn to the police are serious about this, and they're going to shut this gang down.
I don't think there was ever that moment as yes, there was the part where what's his name gets killed by the Greeks after that one guy makes the phone call and stuff, but for some reason that just didn't feel as much of a rush to me. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of was like,
Frank Sabatka.
Frank Sabatka, yeah, exactly, and that was a great scene, like you mentioned. But it just wasn't like, it kind of, yes, it came crashing down, but it was more like it was a smaller house of cards that fell. I felt like,
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I thought the saga of the Sabatka family was just a Shakespearean level of tragedy.
It was very tragic. Yeah, definitely.
A Greek tragedy.
Yeah.
Pun intended, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know. Yeah, this season was. It's a very different season from most of the other seasons in a lot of ways. But and in keeping with The Wire's way, we will see bits and pieces of some of these people again later in the future. I think we'll see a little bit of them in later seasons, but not very much. But yeah, what did you think of the downfall of the Sabatka union? I mean, was he kind of like again, spoilers galore. If you haven't watched The Wire and you ever intend to, it's too late for you to be this far into the episode. But he was kind of almost like a Jimmy Hoffa character or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he was a kind of person that, he's a man out of his own time, and, he definitely would have operated much more successfully back in the quote-unquote good old days. He kind of felt like he was a person that had to do a little bad to do a little good. He would, that scene where he gives the money to the guy who's thinking of leaving the union. Obviously that's dirty money that he gave him, but that guy was working at the union, and he's trying to keep the union together, and he's trying to give this guy, this guy wasn't getting his days, and he was trying to switch unions to feed his family, but now he's trying to help him out to keep him together, and he's trying to, do these under the table political donations to try to get some kind of headway on this project that would possibly, make for some job security, but at the same time he's fighting automation and robotics and stuff, and the general shift of the world, and
the police department.
The police department, sure, yeah, absolutely. After the can with the dead girl showed up, and he's fighting a lot of forces, and he's not a perfect person, and he obviously has done some very bad things, but at the same time, in his mind, he thinks it's justified because he's doing it for some sort of greater good. There's a speech he gives. I can't remember when it was. It's later in the season, but he talks about it was all for. I think he's talking to Nick maybe or somebody. He's like, it was all for you. It was all for work, even when it wasn't for work. It's like he even sees like the time when he's drinking with his fellow stevedores as part of his job, and that camaraderie, and he's all that stuff is mixed in for him.
In Korea too.
What's that?
Yeah. I think that the drinking as part of the job is something you can see in Korea for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's an idea that is multicultural in some ways, but I think he was an amazing character, and I've always seen him kind of like, as I said, I think before, as kind of like the poor man's Tony Soprano.
Yeah, I can see that.
What do you think of that?
I think Tony Soprano is a little more ruthless than he was. I felt like he was a little more reluctantly drawn into the world of smuggling, as far as just not asking too many questions about what was in the cans. I think when the people that came before him were coming up, I think was more about, this can fell off the truck. Let's steal some electronics, or let's steal this and that. But this was more like large scale. Don't ask any questions. Just get this out of here, and don't worry about if it's like human beings or drugs or what. So, and maybe that always was going on, but it seemed like he was a little out of his depth from what he was used to. So,
I didn't mean to compare him to Tony Soprano as far as ruthlessness. I don't think Frank Sabat is a very ruthless guy. In a lot of ways, I think he's a kind-hearted person at the core, but he's doing what he hopes to see as kind of victimless crimes more than. But I'm just saying he's kind of like this aging patriarch in a criminal organization who cares about his family to some degree, doesn't care about them in the right ways, hasn't raised his child the right way, basically. I mean, Tony Soprano had Christopher, who was kind of like a friend / the son he never had, who AJ wasn't going to be, and that was kind of like who Nick was in this one, I think.
I see some parallels. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he's obviously, he's not the smartest guy in the world. He's got some emotional issues, depression issues, or whatever. He's got a self-deprecating humor to some degree. He's like, I don't know. And there's just a kind of a growing sense of tragedy as you go towards his inevitable conclusion, I think. So and he's kind of another character I think we couldn't have had before Tony Soprano, which is the kind of the fat, balding, ugly, kind of schlubby guy who you kind of grow to love this character anyways, because he's just a great character, I think, and he has depth, I would say. They didn't have as much time with Frank Sabatka as they had with Tony Soprano to kind of plumb those depths, but I thought he was a very good character and very tragic, and him and Nick, Ziggy, I agree. Ziggy bugs the fuck out of everybody, basically.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely meant to bug everyone because he's such a fail son. He's just like he's like kind of like AJ is, but to the nth degree. You know what I mean? Like, it's like if AJ had gotten involved in the mafia.
Yeah, if AJ was ADHD and spasticated and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Like, as soon as he purchased that duck, I knew it was all over for that duck.
It was. He spiraled there towards the end.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one thing that The Wire does, and I think this is one of the things that keeps you kind of on the edge of your seat, is it lets you know that something very bad is going to happen, and it lets you see what the bad thing is going to happen, and it gives you some glimmer of hope that the bad thing might not happen, but not enough where you actually believe it, and you're just kind of waiting for the bad thing to happen, and then you're kind of rewarded with a payoff when you're like, oh, I figured out a bad thing was going to happen. Where I really realized that was where, again, spoiler alert, but we've already said that, where they have the big shootout on the corner between the two rival street gangs, and that mom is, coming up to scold her kid to, get down, and, don't, while the shootout is happening. And then she's like, oh, get ready for school. And it's like, he got hit. Like, that kid got hit. And she's just going up the stairs. And, it's that moment of tension where it's like, don't let this be true. I know it's true, but don't let it be true. Oh, it's true. I knew it. And I felt like there's a lot of moments on that where like bad things happen to kind of, especially not like main characters, but like more side characters and stuff, where the show really rewards you for, knowing kind of in a little bit of advance, like something bad is going to happen. So.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing about The Wire is that's, better than like most TV shows is that, every character is on some sort of trajectory,
Right.
And sometimes they buck the trajectory and they have a surprising outcome, but usually they don't. And certain characters like Bubs we've talked about before he just has a lot of luck compared to other people. Even though his life is really hard, he makes bad decisions and, etc. But he's generally a lucky individual on the small scale, like on a day-to-day level. On a long-term scale, he's not a lucky person. But but I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's not the show doesn't cheat you, right?
I appreciate that. That's why it feels so real, because you can see, you know what I mean? It makes logical sense why things happen. So
yeah, Ross Geller is not dating Rachel, right? Like, I mean, that's a completely unearned character arc that, is kind of like, oh wow, what if the nerdy guy gets the hot chick? Wow, ooh, that's really, oh my god.
Also, Rachel was not affording that apartment working part-time at the coffee place. So.
Yeah, I mean, this show has an economic realism to it. I think that a lot of shows, take it for granted that the main characters have their, I hate my boss, or oh gosh, if I want to buy that thing, I need to save up. It's like, but they're basic. They own a house. They this and that. They have their basic situation taken care of usually. So, but I don't. So there's a socioeconomic reality. There's usually a realistic kind of like trajectory of what the characters, where they're going and what's going to happen with them, and what the possibilities are and stuff. So, and I think that's, if it reads as kind of predictable sometimes, well, I don't know, it might be worthwhile, I think, if you kind of just made predictions about the characters. It doesn't have to be specific, but if you just went through and said, like, for this character, do I think that there will be a positive outcome or a negative outcome? For this character, do I think there will be just go through and just kind of like give a plus sign or a minus sign for everybody. Yeah. And by the end of the season, just see where they all wind up.
Right. Well, I wasn't even saying that as a criticism necessarily, but it is, I do notice it is markedly different from how other shows operate, because there's always that, like, what? And there's like that twist, and, there's always like, that's how they think that they have to keep you on the edge of your seat, because something unexpected has to happen. And in a certain way, that's good in the moment, but it kind of cheapens the overall experience, because at the end of it, you're like, well, I was just twisted back and forth this whole thing, and it didn't feel realistic to me, because life isn't really like that. There's, of course, some twists and some turns, and it happens, like that sometimes, but it doesn't happen like that every single day, so, but that kind of adds to the, I guess, realism, but also the kind of high-quality storytelling and everything, that they are able to trust the audience enough that what's going to happen, you're going to keep watching anyway, because of how we're going to roll it out to you. So
yeah, but I think people's individual trajectories may be slightly more predictable than on regular TV shows or whatever, but I still think they've got such a huge well of characters. They've got so many characters on this cast that the characters interact with each other throughout the show in surprising ways, right? You never know, like when for example, Omar meets Bunk or whatever, and he's like, "Weren't you were a year ahead of me or something?" And
right,
like, whoa, that's crazy, because these guys came from the same place. They wound up on opposite sides of the law, and they're both fascinating characters in their own right, and just wow, they met each other. And that doesn't mean they're going to be best friends in the future. They're going to, get a beer together or anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just a moment, right?
Yeah, well, since you brought up Omar, I have to just mention probably my favorite scene, maybe in the history of television, Omar in court.
Yeah.
OMG.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah. I think I told you something about like, Omar's going to have his day in court.
Yep.
You said something like, how do the police like know he's out there doing these murders and they're not like throwing him in jail? I'm like, don't worry, Omar's going to go to court and you're going to see the role he plays. And he's, I don't know what I said, but I didn't spoil anything, I don't think, but I think he's going to get his day in court.
Yes.
And, wow. Yeah.
Something with a tie, right?
Yeah. Omar is an individual.
I love it. I love how McNulty's in the store with him and he holds up that yellow suit and he's like, it's a look. And Omar's like, no, it ain't. And then they're like, so what is your occupation, Mr. Omar? And hi, Rob's drug dealer.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two schools of thought on that. And one school of thought is that undermines his credibility as a witness. On the other hand, it strongly bolsters it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. Well, that was the thing that tore the case down, is when Levy tried to get on his high horse and he was like, so you just are benefiting from the misery of this city? And he's like, just like you. like how are we different? You have a briefcase, I have a gun. This is the same thing. Like, we're just doing two different parts of the same job. So
yeah. In a way, that part felt a little bit over the top to me, but it's a zinger. And,
so good.
Time you see it, it's like, whoa, he went there.
Oh yeah.
But but the scene of him on the stand is like, he said something like, Bird had that gun or something. Bird does covet those shiny things or something. I forget what he says exactly, but he's like, he's trifling or something. It's like, wow. It's like he's going all out in the courtroom there. It was wild.
Oh, absolutely. I'm worried about Omar, though. I don't think he's long for this world.
Well, mark it down in your predictions. We'll see what
all right. I guess you know how it turns out, but I don't know. Well, either him or Stringer's got to go. Maybe we're getting too much into season 3 at this point, but the beef he had with Brother Mazzone was pretty interesting. I'm sure that will come back. So
yeah. Well,
to be continued. I guess
I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But those three people. There's kind of a triumvirate, like they're not working together necessarily.
No.
Three of them.
Well, they never really were, because wasn't it Avon that hired Brother Mazzone to come in and be the muscle while everything was going on?
Yeah. Well, I want to be very careful what I say right now, because if I don't know.
It's okay. We can leave that for next time. We'll leave it for season 3. But those three. But Brother Mazzone, Stringer, Bell, and Omar. Those three have an arc. Mm-hmm. And they're definitely they're butting heads. They're heading towards something. Mm-hmm.
So. But Avon's in jail right now where I'm at. Although I just watched the Hot Shots. I think episode 3 is called Hot Shots. I think, which is where Weebay complains about the prison guard who's cracking down on him because this guy killed his cousin or something like that on the street before he admitted to it, at least, and he probably did it. And, Weebay is going to Avon and saying, look, I can't do this, right? You got to take care of this. And Avon talks to Stringer, and Stringer has some people tail this guy to Butchie, the blind bar owner / drug dealer.
Yeah, how does that guy get along? Like, since he's blind, how does he? I guess he's got people around him to count money, but I don't know. Why do they need him then if he's relying on everyone else?
I think he's kind of he's an OG in that neighborhood. I think he's on the east side. I think he's on the east side, I believe.
Huh.
I think he's under Prop Joe, maybe, but I could be misremembering that. But he continues to play a role in later seasons too. And
yeah, I mean, I guess he's like known by everyone because obviously he's talking to Omar, he's talking to Proposition Joe, he's talking to Stringer. So
yeah, and yet he's you would think, I mean, he has a certain amount of respect, I think, in the neighborhood there. But at the same time, we see that he's willing to sell out somebody who is working with him. This prison guard has been, good with the money, brings back the right amount every time, has been working with them, obviously, for a little while. And yet he sells them out to Stringer and Avon. And so, he's a pragmatic guy who, is cold-blooded too. But he seems to have kind of he seems like a nicer guy than a lot of people, and he seems to have a certain amount of respect and stuff. So, but yeah, so that was a wild scene, and he and Avon approaches D'Angelo in the library and says to him, look, he's like, you seem like you're a little dusted. You seem like he's basically saying you seem like you're using drugs right now. And he's like, yeah, I'm just trying to get by. And he's like, yeah, but you don't need it though, do you? And he's like, no, I don't need it. I can quit whenever I want. And he's like, well, so you could take a few days off then, couldn't you? And he's like, yeah, I could do that. And he's like, well, you're going to do that then, right? And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. Okay. And I was kind of freaked out. Like once you see that he's poisoned the drugs and people are dying and stuff in the cells, you're like, wow. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't tell D'Angelo exactly what was going to happen or something, although D'Angelo probably would have warned his friends, so I guess I'm not surprised. But I'm just saying, I think, telling a drug addict, you're going to hold off for a few days, right? When you're their uncle, is like, you can't.
Yeah, sure, I'll hold off for you. Yeah, right.
yeah, of course. Oh, God.
Sure.
You're so high tonight. I do not need to be dealing with this conversation right now.
Yeah, exactly. He's like thinking in the back of his mind, this is all the more reason why I'm going to get high. Like in this conversation right here.
Yeah.
Man, my uncle's stressing me out. I'm in jail.
My uncle / drug gang lord boss is telling me not to do drugs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. That is interesting that he wasn't a little more forceful about it. But I mean, in the end, doesn't he kind of know what happens even without not actually knowing? I mean, when that all actually plays out with D.
Okay. Well, you can say what happens. I haven't watched it yet, but I know what's coming.
All right. Well, he hangs himself supposedly, but what really happens is that Stringer Bell has paid some guy from Washington D.C. to have another prisoner go into a closet in the prison library and strangle the guy and make it look like he tied his neck to a door handle and sat down with his hands in his pockets and make it look like he was hanging himself. But really what happened, of course, is that he was murdered on orders from Stringer Bell after Stringer Bell figured out that D'Angelo wasn't going to go along with Avon's plan to get out early by snitching on the guard that was bringing the drugs in. So, I mean, but why was that I still don't understand why that was such a big deal, because it's like, he didn't seem like he was going to go and turn on them necessarily. It's just like, I'm going to do the rest of this time the way I want to, and you know what I mean? But do you just feel him slipping through his grasp in general, and that's why he had him killed?
Well, I think, again, Stringer Bell is a consummate businessman, and D'Angelo's doing 20 years in jail. He's not going to be in the gang anymore. At any point in the next 20 years, he could change his mind, decide, you know what, I know these people, I know what they did, I can turn on them and get myself out or whatever. I mean, it is, I think, for the TV show, it's tragic and it's dramatic that it seems like he's not going to play ball with them anymore, but at the same time, he's not going to roll on them. He's going to do his time honorably, right? But we see that as the audience. I don't think Stringer could necessarily see that. Maybe Avon could see that.
But it's just the fact that he's not going along kind of shows the cracks in the armor that will eventually spill out in the future. Even if it's not happening now, maybe he'll turn on them, down the line.
Yeah. What did you think about The Great Gatsby? the book club in the library that D'Angelo was a part of.
Yeah, I mean, I almost felt like I knew something bad was going to happen when he made this eloquent speech about the end of The Great Gatsby and whatever, about how he, was living a fraudulent life because he wasn't dealing with his past. And, I think that I kind of knew he was not long for this world after that. So.
Yeah. Well, this time, something that I noticed about that is the similarities, I guess, to Jay Gatsby, to D'Angelo Barksdale. And the scene that did it for me was the scene where D'Angelo and his baby mama go to the fancy restaurant in the first season, right? Mm-hmm. And they feel totally out of place. He's like, somebody's taking his coat. He doesn't want them to take his coat. Like, they're bringing the dessert tray by. He just tries to take a dessert. And like, no, these are just examples. He's like, he asks her, like, do you think these people know what we do? And she's like, it doesn't matter what we do. Your money's good, right? Like, they'll take your money. That's it. If you've got the money, you can be whatever you say you are. And that's Jay Gatsby, right? I mean, like,
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I didn't realize that at the time because that's like foreshadowing or whatever. But yeah, so
yeah, I mean, again, that's why this show bears like repeat viewings, because like that's not something that I noticed the first two times, but it's like, oh yeah, that scene, that's something that where he was, somebody who had come into money, didn't come from money, and was trying to build a facade of respectability and stuff that ultimately at the end he couldn't really escape his past, just like Jay Gatsby and stuff. And so that was, again, that's where this show just operates on so many levels. It's just like, it's a smart show.
Definitely.
So how did you feel when D'Angelo died, though? I mean, like, this is a character from the beginning, I mean, he originally we said that, what's his name?
Wallace.
Wallace was kind of like the moral center of the drug gang and stuff. And I think he was, but I think also, like, I mean, kind of like D'Angelo was kind of like the same thing 10 years later, a little bit deeper into the game.
Yeah.
Had committed some murders, had done some bad things, but was still basically like a guy who was kind of a blank slate, kind of like didn't like cruelty for cruelty's sake, didn't want to hurt anybody necessarily.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like after Wallace died, I kind of have the 1,000-yard stare now. I was a little numb after Wallace died, so I was like, okay, well, this is very sad, but I've already been saddened as much as I can be sad in this show. So.
Yeah.
But I mean, it made sense. I mean, he was out of his depth again. But again, he was kind of caught by the fact that he's in this family, he's in this gang, he's in this for life, and he can't really leave it. And he's trying to leave it, but it's too little, too late. He tried to get that deal. I think when he didn't get the deal on the way, when he wanted to like start a new life and not be a part of this and roll on everybody, and his mom came in and advised him otherwise, that was the moment I kind of knew that it was over for him, because he already shown that he wasn't all in, at that point. Even though his mom came and convinced him otherwise, I knew eventually it would still go the other way for him, because he's not Weebay, he's not Avon, he's not these people that are lifers in this thing, good or bad, up and down, inside jail, outside jail. It doesn't matter to them. They're always, I don't look for them, and maybe this will change, but I don't look for them to change no matter what happens to them. But I knew that once he had made that, where's Wallace, all that was the moment I was like, okay, he's gonna get God eventually, because this can't stand. What do you think?
Yeah, it is interesting to see people like, I think D'Angelo, Avon had said in the first season he's never been in jail and he doesn't want to go to jail. But now that he's in jail, he seems totally just in his element. He's totally comfortable. His needs are taken care of. He's, got the guards doing favors for him. He's got everybody else, respecting him and stuff. And to him, it just seems like it's almost not even that different from life on the street. And it's like, he's not going to, he's the top dog. There's nobody he could turn on really, except for possibly Stringer in some sort of a reverse kind of roll down thing or something. But, but yeah, like he and Weebay are there. Weebay, I don't know. Weebay, I don't know if Weebay could, lawyers make deal with some bad people sometimes, but I think Weebay has done enough bad stuff that they would have a hard time giving him anything less than life in prison, no matter what he did.
I think he's lucky he didn't get the death penalty. I think that was a victory for him. So.
Yeah. So that they continue to be fascinating, but but again, we're kind of going back to them, it's an important story, and it's a story that will continue. But again, we're in season 2. So, what did you think of the Greeks on the Patapsco side?
Yeah, that was interesting. I wasn't actually even mad at the end of the season when they got away. I almost wanted them to. I was interested that in 2000 whatever, you could still be a person that could just disappear into the ether. That was always my thing about the movie Catch Me If You Can, and I was always kind of saddened by it because I was always like, okay, in the 70s you could pull this off, but today there's no way. And so I was kind of like, yeah, okay, even these guys are terrible. They're obviously sociopathic criminals that have done horrible things and prostituted people and killed people and trafficked all sorts of horrible things. But at the same time, it's like it is heartening to think that in this day and age of technology and everything being tracked, that you could just disappear into the ether if times got really tough. So I don't know, that wasn't the most horrible thing I've ever seen. So.
I think that's the American dream.
Right, exactly.
The American dream is that you could commit a crime and plausibly get past it and never be found out about it.
Yeah, and just start a new life somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the American dream to some degree. But
yeah.
I've always been confused and fascinated by the line at the end where they said, we're not even Greek. They can't find us. We're not even Greeks, right? It's like, what the hell? Are they Russians? What the hell are they then?
Oh, they're probably like Latvian or some like next door country or something. They probably just told everyone they were Greek or maybe everyone just assumed they were Greek, so they're like, whatever. Yeah, fine, we're Greek. Whatever.
Yeah, and they spoke Greek. They were speaking Greek.
No, that's true. That's true.
And the thing that confused me about that too was that the guy who had opened the container on the boat that let the women out, where one woman got killed, and then they had to decide to put all the other women back in and killed them all anyways. When they caught that guy when he tried to jump the boat in like Philadelphia or something, and they were torturing him and stuff, and they were about to kill him, he had Turkish tattoos. He was a Turkish guy, and Turks and Greeks fucking hate each other from way back.
Yep.
And this guy said, "Don't even worry about it. I'm not even. This is the new world. I'm not even considering the old world and stuff. I'm not considering that I'm a Greek and you're a Turk. So don't even. I'm not. I give you my word. I'm not going to hurt you and stuff." I was like, but then he killed him. He's like, he's this fucking Turk or something. I was like, okay. So when he comes back later and he says, "I'm not even Greek," I'm thinking like, okay, so why was there all of that?
All right, I'm looking up on the Wikipedia page now. It's saying that he stated he is not actually Greek, although this could be a reference to his nationality, not his ethnicity. So it's possible that he was in a Greek community, not in Greece. You see what I'm saying? Like, he could have been like in a Greek town in some neighboring area or something. It's not that he's like actually like a national of Greece, but he is maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like, he could still be ethnically Greek and just not like a Greek citizen or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was a really confusing. I thought it was. Yeah, I thought that was just a very confusing line.
Right, because they give all these other clues throughout the thing that he actually is Greek. So.
Yeah. So yeah, that was interesting and stuff. Yeah, what do we think about his right-hand man guy? I forget the guy's name. The guy who always wear those, like, the newsboy hats.
Oh, yeah, good hat.
He was gay or something, and he was sort of interested in Nikki or whatever?
Oh, he was?
Something going on.
I missed that part.
Wasn't he?
Maybe.
I thought there was some subtext there.
Well, you might be right. I don't know. Huh, yeah, I missed that.
I'd have to... I'll keep going. I'll keep watching this thing, but I thought there was some sort of a homoerotic tension between him and Nick. Not on Nick's part, but on his part, definitely.
Huh.
He definitely had a soft spot for Nick compared to, Ziggy and Frank Sabatka himself. So. Yeah. Yeah, that was. Yeah, what did you think about the relationship between Nick and his baby's mama?
It was interesting. Yeah, I felt bad for him because obviously that they were trying to like start a life, and that wasn't possible on the Steve Dorr salary, working a straight job. So he felt like he had to do what he had to do to get the money. I did think it was funny at the end where they're in the witness protection and they go into the crappy hotel, and she's like, "This is a dump," and he's like, "Well, you said you wanted to get a place, right?"
Yeah. Yeah, it was that whole story was just, it was wild.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think I see what you're saying about how the Sabatkas in general are kind of, there's a lot of larger issues in American life that they're kind of standing in for. Automation, union busting, income inequality, the housing crisis, we got, all those things mixed into their life story because, they're basically, you could work as a Steve Dorr, even working a couple days a week and actually make a life for yourself back in the day, but that is just not possible anymore. So
every season of this show is about big ideas, and and everyone has some overarching theme, and that those things seem to be some of the themes of this season. And part of me was outraged when it ended. I wanted it to keep going, right? But on the other hand, I was like, well, you know what? Maybe he came in, he said what he had to say, and any kind of future seasons beyond these 5 would have been superfluous, right?
Right.
Pronouncing that right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I respect that, that he, each season had some theme, and you could keep beating back on it. You could keep going back to the characters kind of for sentimentality's sake. But he had basically said what he had to say philosophically. So
right.
I do respect that about the show.
Well, I mean,
season 2.
Right. And The Sopranos may be my favorite show of all time, but I think I've said this before. I mean, in seasons like 6 and even 5, I don't know, the later seasons kind of felt like, just like a victory lap in certain ways, and they were just trying to, spin their wheels a little bit. And I believe me, I enjoyed them spinning their wheels, because who doesn't want to spend more time with Christopher and Adriana and all them? But at the same time, it's like, I think we've covered the main conflicts of the show, and seeing AJ and his Latin girlfriend get a place in the bad part of town isn't really adding too much to the story for me overall, even though it's fun to watch. So, but
I didn't dislike that subplot, but
I didn't either. But it wasn't like, I don't think it was like the original idea of the show played out, So.
The part where it kind of jumped the shark for me, and I think we've talked about it before, was the part where after he kills Christopher, when he goes out to Las Vegas and he shacks up with Christopher's old girlfriend and has sex with her and does peyote and stuff, and he's like, I understand. I'm like, no, this is not Tony Soprano. This is out of character. This is, I don't buy it.
Yeah, the mother's the bus. We keep trying to get back on the bus, all that kind of stuff.
Well,
that was like the vision he had on peyote, was that mother's like a bus that we get off, and then we're always trying to get back on the bus or something. So.
I forget. I remember that line. I don't remember who he was talking to, but that scene and that and just the self-indulgence of it. I thought too. He's like, it felt very self-indulgent. Why is he in Las Vegas? Oh, well, I had to wrap up some of Christopher's old business in Las Vegas. What the fuck does that mean? That we've almost never we never met this woman before that I can remember. We never saw Christopher really in Las Vegas. We saw him in Hollywood a couple times, but I don't know. It just it's like
absolutely.
They didn't bother explaining exactly what it meant. I mean.
Yeah, I definitely go back and watch the first few seasons way more than I go back and watch the last few. So,
I don't think I could start watching and stop watching. I think if I started watching The Sopranos, I have to go all the way through.
I don't know. I've seen that show so many times.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I would probably skip the first season because I feel the first season was not totally solid. I mean, they nailed down the acting and the characterization a little bit better in some of the later seasons. I think so. But yeah. But anyways, there are definitely some big themes. Again, this is a thinking show. It's a smart show. So at this point, after watching season 2 and starting season 3, how do you think it stacks up against The Sopranos? How do you think it stacks up against Breaking Bad / any other, premium television or whatever the, whatever the terminology is? I mean, how do you think it stacks up against other shows now?
I still don't have a lot of fun most of the time watching The Wire, and that's maybe my biggest criticism for it. It just feels like, like there was a couple scenes, like that scene with McNulty after his wife tells him that they're not going to get back together, and then he crashes his car, and then he has sex with the waitress. That was a good scene. Like, I recognized the quality of it, the artistry of showing him spinning out, and the way it was filmed was good, and I thought it effectively communicated what it was going to say. But I don't want to, that I didn't feel good after watching that. I'm just like, man, this is a father and a policeman, and he's doing this. Like this is not good. Maybe this is actually what happens in real life, and maybe it makes sense for the character. But man, this is hard to watch. Maybe it'll get easier once I'm a little more numbed out from watching the entire series. But I don't know. It's not as rip-roaring fun as some of my other favorite shows like The Sopranos are. I think we talked about before, it's a little more cartoony and a little more removed from reality, only because it has that kind of I don't know. It doesn't feel as quite as visceral for some reason as The Wire does. And The Wire is very man, every moment is dripping with meaning, and we're supposed to get the larger themes and think back, and I don't know, in certain scenes are amazing. I want to go back and watch certain scenes, but I'm not super jazzed to watch the entire series again, I guess. I want to go see certain scenes over and over again. I want to live in the scene with Omar in the court. You know what I mean? But as far as the larger thing, it's I don't know, this is hard to watch.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know. Yeah, I guess even though the subject matter is, dark and dour and not very optimistic most of the time, I guess just the enjoyment of the aesthetic, the craftsmanship, the dialogue.
The dialogue is amazing. I'll give you that. That is one of the highlights of the show.
I'm appreciating it on all those levels, and so I'm not so wrapped up in am I having a good time right now necessarily or something.
Yeah.
I'm having a good time for different reasons, I guess.
Oh, sure. Well, and Baltimore is just not a pretty place to look at, you know what I mean? And that's the other thing. It's you usually Lost and stuff. Lost had its problems, many, many problems. But the one thing you could say for Lost, it was on a tropical island, you know what I mean? Or Mad Men. I think Mad Men went completely off the rails if we're talking about other prestige TV shows. But Mad Men was fun to look at. They got that aesthetic just right, and it was this kind of dream fantasy time machine world that you could step into and just marvel in the beauty of it. Baltimore is not a pretty place, and that is not what it looks. That probably is what it looks like, but you know what I mean. It's kind of hard on the eyes. So
I don't know. I think it's a love and a hate letter to Baltimore, the whole series.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
So, but I mean, I think, with Sopranos too, I mean, New Jersey is Nobody's vacation spot most of the time, Jersey Shore, notwithstanding. Yeah. So.
But they at least had some trees, I guess, in Jersey.
I think they captured, the thing is, though, that, I mean, with Lost, I mean, they filmed it in Hawaii, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to go back and rewatch Lost, and 10 years after I first watched it, and I couldn't watch it because the first season was 25 episodes, and it was one of these shows where it's oh, this guy's a bad guy, but now they have to work with him because he's the only one who could do this thing for them, and and oh, now these guys are working together, and it's just every possible permutation of these guys didn't like each other before, but now in this special episode they have to get together. Yeah, and it was just it's stupid.
Right, but that's one of those shows I was talking about with the twists and the turns, but it just feels empty at the end. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean, it's not a. It feels like you're watching something deep and ooh, what is the monster? What
the smoke monsters? Really what is that?
Yeah. Oh wow, that's really cool. But it's you watch something like this and you just can't go back to something like that.
Yeah, right. No doubt.
But the thing is, like, Baltimore is a real place.
Yeah.
And they're treating it like a real place.
Sure.
And they're teaching you, I mean, I've never been there, but I feel like I've been there because of the show, which is, not entirely correct. I mean, I'm sure, a person who's lived there would say, well, some parts of it are great, but, it's not really like that all the time, or this or that or something. And there's different, whatever. But it's showing us this city,
Mm-hmm.
It's the city's a character, basically.
Yeah, it's a rotting post-industrial hellscape.
Yeah, but not without its charm.
True. There are some characters in it.
I think that, there's seasons, there's winter, there's summer, there's, people are wearing different things, people are, and I don't know. I think for some people, like Bodie and people like Wallace, it's all they know. You get that sense when Wallace goes down to the Carolinas or something to stay with his grandma, and when Bodie has to drive up to Philadelphia.
I know, and they has to listen to Prairie Home Companion on the radio because he doesn't know any radio station.
That a mindfuck?
That was amazing. I love the juxtaposition.
This is a different universe. It's like, he's like, the caterpillars were early this year, and it was a nice day in Lake Wobegon. And he's like, what the fuck is this? This isn't like a, like, what is this? What happened to the radio? He's like, well, this is the radio outside of Baltimore. And he's like, I thought the radio was the same everywhere. Like, no. But so I think, like, even though, Baltimore may be a somewhat unpleasant place at times, at the same time, like, we have to understand these people live there their whole lives. And, I think, okay, at the beginning of season 3, what happens? Can you remind me what happens at the beginning of the first episode? I think I know what happens, but I don't want to spoil it if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, we're back, I think, focusing on the Barksdale crew pretty much. Proposition Joe and Stringer have come to some kind of detente as far as sharing the real estate because the towers have been demolished, and now...
Yeah, okay, that's the point I wanted to make. The demolishing of the towers,
yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the beginning scene, I think, right? The guy, all the young guys poop, and Bodie and those guys are sitting out there watching them come down.
Mm-hmm.
And and they have some sentimental attachment to these drug dens that they ran for however many years. And Poot's talking about, he slept with some girl there, he lost his virginity in the tower or something. And
yeah, it was funny. I like that.
For these people, I mean, this place has sentimental value, and kind of vicariously through that, we can appreciate the place.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like that. I mean, you mentioned people that you went to high school with and grew up with, and not being able to imagine a world outside of that. You know what I mean? And there is no they just think this is the greatest area ever, and it's like, and you would know because you've been other places? No, just because you can't imagine anywhere else. And I think that's true for a lot of people in a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different places. It's like wherever you happen to have, popped out, that's where it seems like that's the world, and if you don't have any imagination or any kind of focus or dreams beyond that, that is the world, and there is no other reality. So
that's why I don't really object to the place, I guess, because for some people this is their place, and for 5 seasons I'm getting to inhabit this world with them and live this way with them. That this is the universe, basically, is the county limits around Baltimore. So
yeah, well, that's definitely true. So, and again, maybe one day when I do gather my strength to rewatch The Wire, I will be able to appreciate it on these other levels that you're talking about. But it's kind of I'm kind of binge watching it, sort of. So it's all kind of hitting me at once, and I have no familiarity with this place, and it just seems like such a wasteland to me. So
yeah. That's probably true. The first time you expressed some frustration at the episode of the basketball game. You said, like, I didn't feel like I really was supposed to know. Like, I felt like they just kind of dropped the basketball game on me, and I didn't really know the context. And suddenly, and I kind of said, well, that was kind of setting up Prop Joe and the East Side, West Side, and stuff like that. And now that you're more fully aware of like who Proposition Joe is and what his situation is, do you still feel the same way about the basketball episode, or do you feel like it was doing some other functions that were not immediately apparent at the time?
Well, I still think that's how this show operates, is that, especially that opening scene before the credits roll, they do kind of throw you into an unfamiliar situation, and they set up what's going to happen in the rest of the show, or the rest of the episode anyway. And I still think that's how the show kind of operates in general. It's like, you remember in Calvin and Hobbes on the Sunday version, how they would have that one, the top two panels or whatever that would be unrelated to the rest of the strip. I kind of felt like it's kind of like that. It's like they don't really tell you why this is happening at the initial, but like by the time you get done reading the whole comic, you realize why that was there. So I still think that's kind of the way the storytelling of the show operates, in that they introduce this idea. They don't give you any warning about what it is, just with the promise that, and that even happens to a quieter degree in that one episode. I forget which episode and which season, but I think it was at the end of season 1 when Bubbles is first trying to get clean, and you see him just sitting there on the bench, and he's just staring at the people, and you don't really know, why are we watching Bubbles sitting on a bench watching people in a park? This seems like a waste. But at the end you realize he's trying to get clean. This is what the world feels like to him when he's not getting high, and he's watching other people buy drugs, wishing he could do that. And you don't know that at the time, of course, unless you are totally clued in, and you're not going to be totally clued in until you see what comes next. So I think that may be just the way the show operates. That was a little extra confusing to me, because in the show, or in that episode with the basketball game, even when they introduced the basketball game, like Proposition Joe was wearing like a suit and tie and a clipboard, right? And then Avon's like, you trying to act like you're a real coach or whatever. And he kind of did look like a real coach. And I thought this was just some guy that they got to coach this basketball. I didn't realize that was like going to be a main character going forward. So even in that moment, I was still like, okay, so is this guy, does he matter? Is Avon just yelling at him because he's some minor character that's pretending like he's a basketball coach? I don't know. It was still in that moment a little confusing to me why he was. Of course, I get now, in retrospect, who Proposition Joe is, but you know what I mean? I think that's just how this show operates as far as like storytelling. What do you think?
But I think a lot of shows have, I don't know if they're copying that, but I think it's much more commonplace right now. And it's almost getting done to death, I would say. Like, I mean, if you watch, especially like Better Call Saul, it's extremely like that. I think Breaking Bad was like that, absolutely, yeah, definitely. I think The Walking Dead has a lot of that. Fear the Walking Dead definitely has a lot of that. They just kind of throw you in something, and they pointedly don't explain anything, and then by the end of the episode you're like, oh, okay, so that was like, okay, that's where this, that's how we got there. So,
and maybe The Wire was the first one to really do that, although I mean, I think other shows probably did that beforehand, but that's,
I would be curious which ones they were, because I can't remember any.
I mean, I guess you could say even like Friends and stuff did that, but it wasn't quite as esoteric as like what we're talking about, like at the beginning of our Friends episode, they'd all be sitting in the do-do-do-do-do-do, and they're all sitting in the coffee place and talking about something, but that didn't even really have anything necessarily to do with the rest of the episode. It was just kind of a little vignette that was like, wow, you're watching Friends, here we go. You know what I mean? But everything means something in this show, so that's the only reason that you're all kind of like peeling your eyes and like trying to figure out like what details am I supposed to be getting from this, because it's not a throwaway. A lot of those things are throwaways in more frivolous TV shows, and it's just to fill space or whatever, but like that there's no wasted space in this show, so just pay attention.
And the thing is, I wouldn't even stress about it. I would just say, I know I'm going to watch this again later, so the first time I'm not going to really stress about what everything means. I'm just going to say, okay, I'm just going to take it all in, experience it, just, live in the world, and I'll come back later and I'll gain a lot more, because I know where this is going to go and what this is actually leading towards. But I don't know. I think it's kind of like life in that respect. I mean, things happen every day, and you don't always know the import of a given event. But later, it takes on more meaning and stuff.
Well, and also in retrospect, everything becomes just like a narrative in your mind because you have to tell yourself a story about what just happened. So, in the moment, it doesn't make any sense, but you kind of have to eventually make sense of it. So.
Yeah. And I think, in a way, you might think well, anybody in Baltimore would know that this basketball game was important, but I think the audience is kind of coming into it kind of like the police. They say, where is everybody? Oh, what? There's a basketball game? Who's playing? What the hell's going on? And then they go there and they're like, somebody says, hey, I think Avon is here somewhere, but I don't know which one he is. Mm-hmm. And then they find him and stuff. And so then, so if we're confused, I think it's also because the police were totally confused when they attended the basketball game. But
sure.
You don't have to catch everything the first time. You can't catch everything the first time. And like I just said with the Gatsby thing, mm-hmm. with the callback to the earlier scene,
right.
There's stuff I didn't even really get the second time.
Yeah.
But this show absolutely benefits from repeat viewings. Mm-hmm. You gain a lot.
Right.
And so I would totally not stress about feeling like you're missing something the first time because, just enjoy it. I would say, because the first time is just a kind of no expectations, just, absorb what it has to throw at you. And then later you're going to come back and just, kind of plumb the depths for mm-hmm. more hidden meanings and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, is there anything else about season 2 you wanted to say?
Well, we talked on Facebook about the line when Jay Landsman in the homicide department
mm-hmm.
Talks to the woman she's the police officer who works down on the docks and stuff, and she's mm-hmm. Kind of detailed to the case or something there with them or something, and he's like, while there's a small charm to a woman in uniform, the fact remains that here in homicide we wear plain clothes, which is not to say that the clothes need to be plain. For you, I'd recommend a pantsuit, muted colors, something to what do you say? Something to offset the pinstriped lawyerly affectations of Bunk here and the tweedy impertinence of Freeman. It's I'm butchering it. You might have to include the sound drop in there if you can without without triggering a cease and desist order from YouTube or something.
Absolutely.
But because that was an epic, beautiful line. That was one of the best lines of the whole series. I think it was just such a. Some writer somewhere is showing off with that one because that was gold.
Officer
Russell.
I am informed that you are detailed to this case as a liaison with the Port Police. I also understand that you are the only help that your department is sending.
That's so?
Although there is some small charm to a woman in uniform, the fact remains we work plainclothes in homicide. Which is not to say that the clothes need be plain. For you, I would suggest some pantsuits, perhaps muted in color. Something to offset Detective Moreland's pinstripe lawyerly affectations and the brash, tweedy impertinence of Detective Freeman. Rawls is watching on this one. Let's at least pretend we got a fucking clue.
Tweedy impertinence. I like that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, Rawls and Landsman are just endlessly hilarious because they're just such, I think of the homicide department of the Baltimore Police Department as kind of like one of the circles of hell. And these are just two little, kind of cheerful little demons who inhabit the place and torment everybody. It's just
but they're so terrible.
He's eating a turkey sandwich. He's got turkey hanging off of his fingers and stuff. And he's just badgering these guys about their clothing choices and stuff.
Right.
And yeah, and you had the line too. You said something like, Jimmy McNulty said something to Bunk about his clothes, and Bunk said something back or something.
Oh yeah, well they're staking out. I forget if it was the Greek or the guy that was working with the Greek, but they're McNulty and him were talking about their clothes because I guess Bunk knows a lot about designers, obviously, because he's a very well-dressed man, and Jimmy's obviously trying to take him down a notch, and he's like, you know what they call a man that worries that much about his clothes, don't you? And Bunk's like, yeah, an adult.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. This show, again, it's all important and stuff, and like nothing. There's no throwaway scenes. There's no time filler scenes. There's no dumb subplots that just are to to keep a character on screen or something. It's just like it's a great. It's great. It's just perfect. I think it's almost perfect. It's not perfect. No show could be, maybe, but this is as close to a perfect show as you can get, I think, as far as just working on so many levels, right? I mean, I think TV shows on basic cable are trying to get a little bit edgier, but they still have all these restrictions about what they can and can't do and what they can and can't say, and it's just like, I think it's the sad thing about people who would protest a show that said a bad word or had some nudity in it or was extremely violent or something. The sad thing about it is that they're really depriving themselves because they're limiting themselves to stupid television, right? Like, we have this idea that television is stupid and the boob tube or whatever, but when you're watching a show like this, you don't feel like it's stupid, and maybe that's an illusion, but people compare it to a novel. Like, the show is kind of like a novel. And not a stupid novel, but like a deeply thinking novel, like a serious novel. And I think so. I mean, I think the fact that we've been able to talk, for 2 or 3 hours or however long we've talked about the show so far, and it may be that when we record the next episode, I may be having like a whole bunch of other scenes from season 3 that I'm wanting to bring up again, because, and in fact, I almost guarantee that'll happen. But but the fact that we have this much material to engage with on this show. If you watch CSI, if you watch NCIS or some bullshit like that,
Law and Order,
what are you going to talk about? Yeah, I liked when he caught the killer. Yeah, it's like last week. It's like, yeah, I thought he was going to get away, but he didn't. It's like, what the hell would you even talk about with those shows? I like how the main character is always right. He's so much smarter than everybody around him, and nobody understands him. But he's also tortured. He's tormented. He's got issues, but he's perfect. This is the level that most television operates at. And most movies, and this is why like HBO is eating everybody's fucking lunch, right? Because they've discovered complicated heroes or complex main characters, really complex, not like a house show or something where he's a little OCD and he's an asshole to everybody around him, but he's actually really, really smart, and he's smarter than everybody else, and he's always right. It's like that's what they think complex is. It's like, no, go watch this show and then come back and talk to me about those other shows.
Right. Well, when you just mentioned that nobody understands him thing, that reminded me of the scene from the beginning of season 3 when Herc and Carver are out. Where are they, on the west side? Is it? They're out on their own detail with that one guy. But there was that scene where they're just chasing that one kid around, and Herc is playing the theme from Shaft, and he's like,
"Oh yeah,
who is the man?"
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch it again because it's been a couple of years.
I don't know. There's just those little scenes where it's these little moments that just crack me up, and it's a hilarious show in certain ways. It's of course a tragic and heavy show in most ways, but there are these little flashes of just total humor that you don't catch unless you're like really paying attention and know these characters. And it's like Herc and Carver have these like visions of being like after whatever. It's like, he's playing it for laughs, but I bet in his mind Herc really is like thinking of himself as Shaft in that moment.
Those Herc and Carver are pretty funny.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And I think I'm thinking about like the shift in the season 2 at the beginning. I think in the first episode, he's talking to Kima or something, and he's like, and this conversation kind of presages season 2 being, largely about this group of largely white, stevedores and stuff. He said, like, Kima, I've got like mad respect for black people and stuff. Like, I've been tracing this white gang, and these guys are like, he's like, I go up to him, I'm like, I want to buy some drugs, and they're like, oh, we'll sell you the drugs. How many drugs? How much drug do you want? It's like, you guys are knuckleheads or something.
There should be affirmative action for white drug dealers or whatever.
Yeah. He said, I think that's one of his lines there. And then, we meet people like Ziggy and White Mike over there, and we kind of see that and stuff. And like, it's again, they were setting that up, but they were also kind of like evolving the character of Herc a little bit. And Herc, have you met Carcetti? Carcetti? What's his name? Garcetti? What the hell's his name? In season 3.
Who would that be? Would that be the...
he's the guy from Game of Thrones.
Oh, is this the city councilman or whatever?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Mm-hmm.
What's his name? What the hell's his name?
I think it's Garcetti. Garcetti, maybe? Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. His character is... he's an interesting character as well, and like I said, season 2 was about the decline of organized labor in America and so forth, and season 1 was about the police and the drug gang and stuff, and this kind of thing. Season 3 is largely going to be about politics, and that's going to be fascinating. I think local politics and this kind of thing, and. Season 3 also, have you met, what's his name, Bunny? I think his name is Bunny or something. He looked like a bunny. I forget his name, actually.
Bunny?
He's he's like a colonel or something. He's in the, I don't know what he is. He's pretty high up in the police department.
Is this the guy that, with the brown bag and that speech, that guy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because I think he's the one that's working with Herc and Carver, right?
Okay, yeah. This season 3 has a plot point that is, on the one hand, it seems like something that could happen somewhere and maybe get covered up, but on the other hand, it seems like something that is just a total fantasy. But it serves as kind of like a thought experiment or whatever in the show.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's save that for next time, since we haven't really gone too deep into season 3. But I know I think I know what you're referring to there. So
yeah. Anyways, Well, we probably should wrap up kind of where but. Again, I'm going to have more to talk about as I watch the remaining 9 episodes of season 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to try to get up to where you're at on season 3 and stuff.
Right. But I think we talked about it a little bit on Facebook, but the music in this show is just great. Like, they really use music well, I think.
Yeah. Every season has a different version of the same song. To keep the devil down in the whole thing.
Yeah. The season 2 one was the original by Tom Waits.
Oh, was this the original then?
Season 2's is, yeah. Mm-hmm. That was the first version, okay. And then every other one is a cover.
Okay, for some reason, I like season 2's version best. I think.
That's the original one.
I didn't know it was the original.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the season 1 was the original.
No. I kind of thought that too before I looked it up, actually. But it's by a song by Tom Waits. So.
Yeah, I love the closing scene sound music. I think it's The Fall. Do you know who the author is?
I don't know. Yeah, I know you're talking about the closing credits scene music. Yeah.
To me, the closing credits music seems like music that would be on a conventional cop show. Mm-hmm. And a show that's maybe trying to be a little bit more serious than it actually is. But I like that song. It's classy, it's complex, it makes me think of an urban city environment, like not the inner city necessarily, but like kind of like a, the more like the upscale, like kind of like the world that was it Daniels and his wife kind of inhabit, kind of like a, I don't know. I think I said on the thing, it makes me feel classier than I actually am. The sound, the music at the end credits definitely like, wow, it makes me think. It's like, wow, this is, it's smart music.
Right.
But it's complex. I like it.
But I liked the two choices for the songs I've heard so far for the end of season montage wrap-up songs. I don't know what the first one was, something like The Devil's Smiling or something, and then the second one was a Steve Earle song called I Feel Alright, which I did know before, and that's a great song. Guy who plays Waylon, so.
Oh, okay. He's the one who sings it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a Steve Earle song.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I believe he wrote that song after he got clean, because I think he was on heroin and cocaine until like the mid-90s, and then he got clean, and I think that was like the first album he had after then. So, but yeah, that's the guy that plays Waylon, Steve Earle. He sings that song.
Okay. I wonder who wrote the song in the series then, if that's not the guy.
Oh yeah, how could they exist in the same? Right, exactly.
Did you ever think about that?
Whoa.
Yeah, mind blown. Yeah, the music is good. I think they played a few bars of the Cisco Kid or something.
Oh yeah, by War. That was a great one. Yeah, I like that.
I don't know why they played that song necessarily, but the message was clear. Avon Barksdale is a bad man, right? Like that's basically what they're saying.
Yep. But well, I should I should probably wrap up because I gotta get going. But yeah, good talking to The Wire with you, and I'll keep watching. I'll just watch a little slower, maybe savor the third season here. So, but
yeah, I don't want to cramp your style, but I do worry. I'm working my little tuchus off over here in Korea, and I don't know how many episodes I'm gonna be able to cram in a week here. So
yeah,
I'll do my best.
Hey, I'll get back with you probably next week. Is that cool?
Yeah, definitely. Let's keep this train rolling. This is there's lots to talk about. This show has layers, and there's just it's endless. So.
Yeah.
And I hope it's enjoyable equally for our audience. I hope some of our audience is watching along with us.
Yeah.
If it's the first time or if they've seen it before, I know they don't mind watching it again.
Yeah.
But leave some comments somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
If you do.
Yeah.
We'd love to have that audience participation, that kind of the give and take, so forth.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely promote it and see what we can get for as far as audience feedback here. Like I said, I know people are listening because I've seen the stats, people. I know you're out there, so.
Yeah. I have no idea what's going on. I'm the void here, as far as I'm aware.
little did John know we haven't been recording. I'm kidding.
Yeah, Bob just wanted to have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. I'm lonely over here. I want to talk to somebody.
It's like my life and the Rob Burgess Show is the Truman Show.
Exactly, right. But
all right, well, we'll have a good day there, Bob. And we'll talk to you soon. I'm going to keep watching. I'm going to get back into it and stuff, and get some episodes put down. And we'll do some more soon.
Cool.
I got the day off tomorrow because tomorrow's election day, local elections in Korea. So the bongo trucks will stop broadcasting outside of my place of employment, and who knows? I don't know. We had a funny moment. I heard today that some politician, a Korean politician from my city, who's in the National Assembly, basically Congress, he apparently had this quote. He said something 2 days ago where he said, this other city called Bucheon, he said people move to Bucheon when they get divorced. And then he said after that, they move to Incheon after they run out of money in Bucheon. And so, like, a politician from my city drastically insulted two other comparably sized and larger cities. So I don't know what the fallout's going to be from that.
Well, you have to let us know how it all works out for him.
It was a hilarious quote, though. So. Oh, I had a joke. Okay, hold on.
All right, let's hear it.
Koreans often mispronounce, like LASIK eye surgery or whatever.
Yep.
Well, they say LASIK. Mm-hmm. They always say that, and so they got LASIK, something like that. So I said, why did the Koreans want to go to Hold on, let me see. God, it's so hard to set up a joke the right way. Okay, why did the Korean with bad eyesight want to go to an Indian optometrist? Is that the right word for an eye
optometrist?
doctor?
Yep.
Yeah, and why? Because he wanted to get a mango lasik. Because they don't say LASIK, they say lasik, mango lassie, whatever.
Nice.
That's how I'm living over here. Confusing my students with one dumb joke after another.
Right, exactly. Learning English along the way, hopefully. But
yeah, well, how can you learn if you're not? Are you not entertained? Also. So, anyways, I'll leave our audience with that.
Okay, cool.
But all right, Bob. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, have a good night. Later.
All right, bye-bye. Later on.
If you enjoy this podcast, there are several ways to support it. Join the Rob Burgess Show mailing list. Go to tinyletter.com/The Rob Burgess Show and type in your email address. Then respond to the automatic message. I have a Patreon account which can be found at patreon.com/Rob Burgess Show Patreon. I hope you'll consider supporting in any amount. Also, please make sure to comment, follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, and review everywhere the podcast is available, including iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Facebook, Twitter, Internet Archive, TuneIn, and RSS. The official website for the podcast is www.therobburgessshow.com. You can find out more about me by visiting my website, www.thisburgess.com. And if you have something to say, record a voice memo on your smartphone and send it to therobburgesshow@gmail.com. Include voice memo in the subject line of the email. Until next time.